Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. Will our deputy clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Mayor, all council members are present.
Thank you. Action to approve the agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tiltonburn,
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Okay. Now we have open forum. In order to provide equal access to all during the open forum, each member offering comments during the open forum shall not exceed the allotted 3-minute period. Your time will comment is expired when the red light on the podium appears. No further comments may be made by a member speaking during the open forum after the red light appears. That being said, we have open forum. Is there anyone that wants to come before the council to make comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. Consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda? Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, comments from council? Questions? Please call the roll.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tiltonburn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Thank you. Presentations and reports. SDSU Students Association reports. And I see that Erica Benhouse is in the audience. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. SDSU Students Association Government Affairs Chair. So we had our meeting last night and we approved the electric scooter resolution that you all heard from Senator Nick Grote 2 weeks ago. So that would be getting electric scooters on campus, so that was approved. We took nominations for Senator of the Year and ex officio Member of the Year. We are working on getting senator petitions validated, and we are keeping up on legislative sessions, specifically watching House Bill 1079, which is getting mental health resources on all across the Board of Regents campuses. So that's kind of on our radar right now, and we're watching that go through the Senate. So thank you.
Thanks. Anybody have any questions for Erica? Council member.
I have a question. Since the scooters are now approved, is the university working with someone in the city on implementing it more citywide?
Yes, so we just had to get that resolution approved, and then all the research that we've been doing will, I think Nick said that there's 2 companies in the running right now, so we're working on getting as much research we can about those 2, and then choosing a company, and then going through all of their rules and regulations and everything, and then we'll start working on campus regulations and things like that.
And that's when you'll bring the city into it? Or?
Yes, we just wanted to make sure that we have Senate approval first, and we've worked with senior members. Vice President Michaela Willis has done some research as well, so we're just getting in those ties first before we move to the city.
Thank you.
I would just add quickly, Nick, I and Michaela had a meeting probably about 6 months ago on this very topic. So we've been going back and forth here quite consistently over the last couple of months. Michaela and I think Nick are going to have a meeting here within the next month to discuss the final details through SDSU. We wanted to make sure that there was a collaboration. SDSU was okay having them on campus, and then further conversations within the community, especially as we look to geofence the various areas.
Any other questions, comments for Eric?
Thank you.
All right, we'll have full year 2022 finance report from Ashley Wrench, our Senior Finance Manager.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council.
year of 2022. Keep in mind that our financial statement, but we're not expecting any material changes to the numbers presented within this report. In this report, I'll discuss the 2022 property and sales tax revenue, economic factors impacting the 2022 revenues and an outlook for 2023, 2022 budget to actual performance, and the City Council Priority Projects Fund Summary. Property and sales tax are the largest revenue sources for the city, and in 2022, the city collected just over $19.2 million in sales tax and $3.6 million in property tax, which equates to approximately $3.4 million or 18% above budget. Tax revenues in 2022 were 13% higher than in 2021. And as you can see, the vast majority of this increase can be attributed to first, second, and third penny sales tax. Typically, we expect sales tax to increase year over year by about 2 to 4%. However, a couple of factors that led to such a stark increase in the 2022 revenues were the average Midwest Consumer Price Index, which was at 6.8% for the year, and increased consumer spending due to federal stimulus payments and savings built up during the COVID-19 pandemic. The graph on this slide shows our 2022 sales tax revenues by category, with our top 5 sectors being retail trade, services, wholesale trade, manufacturing, and transportation and utilities. When compared with 2021, all categories showed gains in 2022. When we look at the city's tax revenue growth compared with domestic GDP and consumer price index growth, you can see that the city's sales tax revenue has historically outperformed these metrics, with the exception of in 2020. As of the fourth quarter of 2022, you can see that prices are showing signs of stabilizing, and this is after the 4 prior quarters of high inflation, which was at its highest point in the second quarter at 9%. Looking ahead to the rest of 2023, economists are projecting a mild but short recession. Consumers are exhausting savings built up by during the pandemic, and rising interest rates are also having a negative impact on spending. Because of these factors, businesses will have a more difficult time passing their increased costs onto customers, and there'll be no federal stimulus or bailouts because these are what contributed to the high inflation that they're currently attempting to rein in. Some interesting considerations that haven't historically been experienced during times of recession include workforce shortages that still exist, and the idea that consumer spending hasn't seen a sharp decrease yet, even as interest rates have risen. The rising popularity of remote and hybrid work schedules has changed the economy, and volatility in energy prices may also have an effect on spending in 2023. The good news for the city and the economy as a whole is that in 2022, the year ended strong, and the economy is expected to recover quickly from this short recession. Shifting gears to the 2022 budget versus actual performance. In the general fund, our departmental expenditures ended the year at 89% of the budget, which represents an almost $2.2 million surplus versus budget. Later this evening, I'll be bringing an ordinance to carry forward approximately $1.2 million of this, which are related to expenditures that were budgeted in 2022, but will actually be spent in 2023. It's important to note that during this high period of inflation, like we experienced in 2022, our city departments did a great job of monitoring their costs and staying within budget. As you can see, revenues in our general fund departments came in at approximately 4.9% or $4.9 million over budget, which is mainly due to recognizing the entire increase or the entire amount of ARPA funding in 2022 and receiving some insurance reimbursements for derecho-related repairs. Overall CIP fund expenditures were at 62% of the budget, or a $4.5 million surplus, which is primarily driven by $4.23 million in projects and equipment that are being carried forward to 2023 due to supply chain issues. Combined other funds for the year ended at a 78.33% of budget. Approximately $6 million of this surplus is related to multi-year projects, with remaining budgets being carried forward to 2023. And the city as a whole spent 78.62% of our budget in 2022. On this slide, we're showing the total available balance of the City Council Priority Projects Fund, including the amount of ARPA funds that are allocated to the Public Safety Center. Under approved projects, these were the approved projects from 2022, and after those projects, we're left with $10.895 million. As of now, $9,522,800 is committed to the Public Safety Center. However, the actual projected cost of this project is $21 million. The next priority after that would be an indoor recreation facility. However, as you can see, these projects will exhaust the reserves and would need an additional $10.955 million to accomplish those. Secondary projects include upgrading the Gulf irrigation system at $1.2 million and library upgrades at $1.5 million. To accomplish all of these priorities, the city would need an additional $13.655 million. Finally, here's a look at our desired projects that staff has identified. And in addition to the projects included on the previous slide, we have a training simulator and vehicle for the police department, several park facility upgrades, street equipment, the climate action plan, and the Swiftel Center East lot. This concludes the financial report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Ashley, any questions? Thank you. Okay, contracts and change orders. Item 7A, action on resolution 23-015, a resolution approving the emergency purchase of an All-Tech aerial device. Jacob Meshi, our deputy city manager, will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor and members. 2323 would approve the emergency purchase of an All-Tech aerial device. These are also known as boom trucks and used most commonly in forestry operation for clearing, trimming, and maintaining. The city's 2009 boom truck is approaching 15 years old and is experiencing maintenance and safety challenges. This truck was out of service for most of 2022 after failing a biannual safety inspection and was in need of repair. The city had an opportunity to enter a purchase agreement with vendor All-Tech to receive a new boom truck with an anticipated delivery date of May 2023. If this opportunity was not taken, staff was informed it would be an additional 2 to 3 year wait to obtain the boom truck due to supply chain issues. Funds are available within the Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase. Staff recommends approval of the resolution and would stand for any questions.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve. Is
So moved.
Second.
there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, does the council have any questions or comments? Councilmember Collins.
So, how long are these supposed to last, Jake?
These trucks last anywhere between 10 and 20 years.
Okay, thank you.
Question. All right, please call the roll.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 8, ordinances and first readings. Item 8A, introduction and first reading on ordinance 23-007, an ordinance authorizing supplemental appropriations. Number 2 on the 2023 budget, parts 1 and 2. And Ashley Wrench, our senior finance manager, will present this item.
Mayor and members of ordinance 23-007, authorizing amendment number 2 to the 2023 budget, parts 1 and 2. Part 1, unspent budgeted funds from 2022. The majority of these expenditures were pushed to 2023 due to supply chain issues, which caused delays in receiving supplies and equipment and completing capital projects. This includes approximately $1.24 million in the general fund, with some of the most significant items being unfinished repairs from the derecho, carrying forward the retirement payout contingency fund, and remaining operational allocation of ARPA funds, as well as employee development and continuing education initiatives. We're carrying forward just over $4.23 million in the capital improvement fund for a wide range of projects and equipment. Some of the larger items include street and sidewalk projects that were not completed in 2022, remaining costs for the fire training tower and engine 2 replacement, parks and street vehicles, library interior and exterior repairs, and several park projects. In our special revenue funds, we're carrying forward $1.69 million for the Swiftel Center HVAC system replacement, as well as some special assessment and storm drainage project work. And in the capital project funds, we typically budget for the entire project and carry forward the remaining funds into the next year for multi-year projects. So the $6 million in capital project funds includes remaining project costs for Innovation Campus, 20th Street Interchange, the Brookings County Food Pantry, and the City Council Priority Project funds that have been transferred to the Public Safety Center project. Also included in this number are reimbursements from other stakeholders in the 20th Street Interchange and Food Pantry projects for a total of $1.65 million and $95,000 respectively. Finally, in our enterprise funds, we're carrying forward approximately $1.35 million for projects and equipment in the airport, golf course, and landfill. It's important to note that the $725,600 being carried forward for the airport parallel taxiway project is actually a grant revenue increase of $350,000 and an expenditure increase of $375,600, meaning that the total true expense for the city for this project is the net of $25,600. Part 2 adds new initiatives to the budget that are funded by the 2022 surplus. This includes $608,000 in the general fund, primarily to cover increased insurance costs, new positions, and equipment upgrades. The addition of $206,000 in the capital improvement fund will be used to purchase enhanced safety lighting for street division vehicles, water heater and dehumidification system repairs at Larson Ice Center, and allow for additional renovations to be made at the Pioneer Park band shell. The special revenue funds increase of $99,000 for increased insurance costs and transfers funds to the general fund from the 3B tax fund for new positions. And finally, the $150,000 in the enterprise funds is primarily for related to increase in insurance costs and services and litter control initiatives in the landfill. The second reading of this ordinance will be on March 14th, and with that, I'll stand by for any questions.
Public comment, questions? All right, we'll review this 14th of March again, second reading. Item 9, public hearings and second readings. Item 9A, second reading and action on Ordinance 23-006, an ordinance authorizing budget amendment number 11 to the 2022 budget. Ashley Wrench, our Senior Finance Manager, will review this item also.
Reading of Ordinance 23-006, authorizing amendment number 11 to the 2022 budget. Several departments in the general fund, including subsidies, fire, police, and city clerk, require amendments to ensure proper budget authority for end-of-year expenditures as we close out the 2022 financial statements. These amendments are all budget neutral, as excess revenues received in each department are being added to the budget, which cover these expenditures. This includes revenues and corresponding expenditures of $65,000 in subsidies, $49,002 in the fire department, $20,591 in the police department, and $6,954 in the city clerk department. No changes have been made since the first reading, and staff recommends approval of this ordinance as presented. With that, I'll stand by for.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, council questions, comments? Pretty much covered it last meeting. Please call the roll.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Thank you. Item 9B, second reading and action on Ordinance 23-004, an ordinance amending Section 62-86 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Brookings, South Dakota, to provide for designation of no-mow vegetation areas and no-mow may in the City of Brookings, South Dakota. You better tell me which one of you two is Gabrielle.
I'm Gabrielle.
All right, and then the other gal?
Yep, I'm Robin Butterbaugh.
Robin, okay. They're
good
going
evening.
to present this item for us from the Sustainability Committee.
Introduce the second reading for this ordinance change about no mow may, and would implement no mow time period during the month of May.
So just for a little bit of background, this is a national campaign that is advocated by Bee City USA, and their goal is to raise awareness for emerging pollinators by encouraging temporarily ceasing mowing lawns during the month of May. And this allows for food resources and habitat resources to be preserved during that month. Other successful campaigns in similar cities have been Stevens Point, Wisconsin, which is also a college town, Appleton, Wisconsin, and Edina, Minnesota. So our proposal is to allow for exceptions in vegetation management practices during the month of May, and this would allow residents to participate with no violation notices given for lawns over 15 inches. Lawns must be back in compliance by June 7th, and we do have yard signs available for participants free of charge.
All right, our city attorney, Steve Bridsman, drafted this ordinance, and it's part of the Sustainability Council and the City of Brookings' strategic plan, allowing emerging pollinators more access to food and resources during a critical life stage, and the funding will be provided by the Brookings Sustainability Council's budget for the yard signs. We will include a press release for public communication purposes, as well as a No Mow May webpage that will be accessible by a QR code on the signs. And there'll be social media posts, potential print and radio media, and the yard signs will be available for pickup starting April 1st here at the city building. And this is what the sign is going to look like with the QR code on it.
All right. Thank you, Robin and Gabrielle. I entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Any comments, questions from council? Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So since the last about this, and I was asked if this was mandatory, if people had to do this, they didn't want to participate, and I told them that it's not mandatory. Can you clear that up for me? And
Yeah, that's
just-
correct. This is an
okay.
optional, yes.
Okay. Nobody will get in trouble or anything.
No,
so,
absolutely
okay.
not, no.
That was a concern, so
Yep.
thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Councilmember Avery.
Just a question, what would success look like for you when this is all over? That we would have more bees, or that we have a discussion and are talking about the bees, and or what you think? I can see that there's value in just the discussion and bringing that to awareness that these are problems, and we need to take steps to try to make improvements in our environment and that kind of thing. So fairly hard to measure if you actually gained anything on the bee population, but I still think it's valuable. So any, your thoughts on that, or is there another step? Is there something else that we can do? Or
I would say that the most valuable aspect of the campaign is just the discussion, the yard signs. People are like, oh, what's that? They pull up the QR code, they get, resources to learn about pollinators and how they can help. So honestly, the biggest part is probably just the conversation you and your neighbor are gonna have, you and your friend say like, hey, why don't you do this too? Yes, it is beneficial for the pollinators, but really we can help them more by spreading awareness to the people that we know.
thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Any comment? Please call the roll.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye. Thank you, ladies, for the work that you've done on this.
All right,
Thank
thank you very
you.
much.
Item 9C, introduction and first reading on ordinance 23-005, an ordinance granting a non-exclusive natural gas franchise to Northwestern Corporation doing business as Northwestern Energy, a Delaware corporation, to furnish and sell natural gas in the city and its inhabitants. John Thompson, our Public Works Director, will present this item.
John Thompson with Public Works. Ordinance number 23-005 proposes a non-exclusive franchise agreement with Northwestern Corporation doing business as Northwestern Energy to continue providing natural gas services to city residents. The term of the proposed agreement is 10 years with one option to extend it by the term by 5 additional years. Northwestern has been the primary natural gas provider for the city since the mid-1950s. In the current ordinance, adopted in 2013, will expire on March 21st, 2023. The proposed franchise agreement is a product of collaborative negotiations between city staff and representatives from Northwestern. The base language is modeled after the 2013 ordinance safety concerns associated with gas pipelines and legal protections for the city. Additional language has been added to address current non-discrimination laws and the sharing of Northwestern's proprietary infrastructure with the essential city staff. Northwestern has the technical, managerial, and financial means to support, expand, and maintain their gas network infrastructure and is in good standing with the city. For these reasons, staff recommends the adoption of the proposed ordinance. That completes staff's presentation, but I'd also like to add that it was a pleasure working with Northwestern and their representatives. They were not only accommodating, but very responsive. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. Open to approve on this one.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, any questions from council? Comments? Please call the roll.
Tilton Burn. Aye. Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Collins.
Aye.
Duran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Motion passes. 9D, public hearing and action on ordinance 23-003, an ordinance amending Chapter 94, Article 6, Division 4, Section 94-432, for the purposes of amending the minimum required parking spaces. Mike Struck, our Community Development Director, will review this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The ordinance 23 is an amendment to our zoning ordinance addressing the minimum parking requirements for a number of uses. Thank you. You can kind of see the red lines, the areas that are being proposed, the calculations process, and also trying to match up more of the parking needs with the uses. Many of these are reductions in what the minimum parking requirements would be for a particular use. I can go through them individually, or we can just kind of talk in generalities about it. But essentially, this is something that staff has been looking at over the course of several years in discussions with developers, as looking at projects, and then doing just parking lot counts and finding that our minimum parking standards are pretty strict. And we found that there's significant vacancies in these parking lots, and we tried to match them up and do our counts in some of the commercial uses that are typical with kind of Google's analytics as far as the high use times. And then we did some residential parking counts in the early morning hours, some in the early morning or late evening, depending on how you look at it, and felt that there was room for adjustments and that we could make some changes to decrease this, evaluate it over a period of time, and try to be more efficient in how we, in the end, utilize the existing land resources that we have. So with that, this does come to you with a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission for approval, and I'd stand for any questions.
My name is Dustin Hendrickson, 11. I can also attest that the parking requirements are extremely strict here. They're the most onerous of any community that I've developed in eastern South Dakota. And we've got a building on Main Street, the Lofts building, and we did a PUD there. And we were granted much, much less than parking requirements for most buildings, and we've had no issues with parking there. So I just wanted to put that in. Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer, Specker,
Aye.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Item 10A, action on a revised preliminary plat of Block 3B, Block 4, Block 5, Block 6, Block 8, Lot 157C and Wetland D in Tract 2, all in Prairie Hills Edition. Mike Struck, our Community Development Director, will review this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. On the overhead map outlined in the red is for a large-scale residential development. The LSRD is very similar to our planned development process, only it applies to residential areas. To be eligible, you have to have a minimum of 20 acres to request an LSRD. Essentially, with the LSRD, you're looking at a planned residential community. You have the ability to ask for blanket variances in the process in exchange for getting something unique or achieving greater densities. In this particular case, with the landing in Prairie Hills, they ran into a situation where typically in the R3 zoning, they would be required to have a 7-foot side yard, essentially 14 feet between structures. Because of the orientation of some of the streets and how they would orientate the houses, some of the corners of the houses were less than that 14 feet, and others were significantly greater. One of the unique things in the landing is the footprints of the structures are platted once the foundations are in or the structures are built. And when you purchase a home in this particular development, you only own the footprint of the house. All the land surrounding is held by the association. Essentially, side yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks are somewhat irrelevant because it's not your land that you own. And so they're requesting just blanket setback of 10 feet between structures. And that's sufficient to meet the fire code. In addition, on the front yard, these are private streets. They were previously approved as private streets through the development process. They're constructed to 26 feet in width, which is a little less than what our standard private street width requirement is, but it's something that was previously approved. When we measure setbacks, we measure it from the edge of the road, the curb. And on the front loading garages, they're requesting a 20-foot setback in the front yard. With side loading, they're requesting a 13-foot setback in the front yard. In addition, with LSRD, they're not requiring any sort of minimum lot areas. They only own the footprint, so it's kind of challenging to require a certain lot area. All the land around the structures are owned by the association, as well as they're requesting a waiver from the minimum lot width. The primary reason why this is coming before you, they've had some challenges, in the recent year as far as new builders have been introduced into this area. They've looked at trying to provide a little bit different housing product rather than to continue with the same model. They're trying to provide some differentiation within there and to provide a little bit of uniqueness to help fit some additional townhomes in there. They started to orientate them a little bit different and also trying to orientate them a little better with the curvature of the streets that go through. So this does come with a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission for approval, and I'd stand.
Thank you. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, any questions for council? Comments? Please call the roll.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 10B, action on a preliminary plat for Lot 53D in Sioux Valley Village, Indian Hills Edition. Mike Struck, our Community Development Director, will review this item.
Thank you, on the overhead screen, you can see on the lot 53 is being proposed to be subdivided to 53D in the Sioux Village Indian Hills Edition. This is a large parcel along Crystal Ridge Road. The owners of the property are looking to sell a portion to another developer who is interested in constructing about 3 to 4 apartment buildings in that area. The existing apartments kind of follow the south and west lot line. There's an access road or access drive that comes off of Trail Ridge Road that it provides access into the existing apartments. That would continue kind of in a northerly fashion and then wind between the apartments and exit out onto Crystal Ridge Road. The grading plan, the site plan, the preliminary drainage plan all meet city requirements. It does come up with a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission for approval, and I'd stand for any questions you may.
So moved.
Second.
Open up public comment on this item. Justin, you have any comments? Okay. Council, have any questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 10C, action on Resolution 23-003, a resolution authorizing the transfer of real property to the Brookings Economic Development Corporation for economic development purposes.
Nope, I got it.
I guess Paul's going to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. Economic Development Corporation worked with local businesses who desired to make major improvements in their operations. BDC requests the purchase of approximately 11. City owns. Property is located east of I-29 and north of Highway 14 bypass, directly west of Millbourne. The recommended land price is $247,203. The price of land was determined by the potential expansion that includes increase in quality positions, an investment that achieves objectives of the new economic development plan passed by council, which diversifies and maximizes our ag innovation sector, as well as grow our local businesses. The city and developer identified necessary land for our future water infrastructure needs. Regional drainage improvements and partnerships are identified. And finally, the development will assist in the creation of necessary connectivity and the expansion of future industrial opportunities further north. The city staff recommends approval and appreciates the opportunity to work with our local businesses.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, is there any comments, questions from City Council? Our city lawyer would like to make a comment.
Paul, I think with the survey, we may have an extra couple of acres that might be part of that resolution for the transfer because we're going to retain easements. And so I would suggest that we move to amend to approximately 13.09 acres, pick up 2 acres that could also be conveyed as a part of this transaction. During the negotiations, we determined that this parcel could be transferred with the city retaining easements as opposed to retaining that particular land. And so the survey is and platting process is still in the works, and so I would suggest just a motion to amend it to approximately 13.09 acres. I think that might be more accurate for the transaction.
Everyone good with that friendly amendment? Do we want to vote on the amendment first? All right. Please call the roll on the amendment.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins.
Aye.
Motion passes. Any public comment on this item? Any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran.
Aye.
Okay, item 10D, action on resolution 23-009, a resolution authorizing the real transfer of real property to the Brookings Economic Development Corporation for economic development purposes. Our city manager will present this item also.
Thank you, Mayor. Approached by Ryan Company of Minnesota to purchase 18.53 acres of development. Ryan Companies design, develop, finance, manage, and construct projects with their many national retail partners. The site is located north of 6th Street and directly east of I-29, commonly known as the Marketplace. If approved, the 18.53 acres will be transferred to the Brookings Economic Development Corporation, and the proposed price for the property is $1,130,033.52, or approximately $1.40 a square foot. Ryan Company's aggressive development timeline will bring forward a more detailed site plan to the March 7th Planning Commission if City Council approves the item tonight. City staff does recommend approval of the land transfer for economic development purposes.
A motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Is there any public comment on this item? Is there any questions, comments from the city council? I, for one, am really glad this finally happened. We've had this property for quite a few years, pretty much a decade, and we're finally going to get something to happen. I'm really happy that we finally held on to it, and I think the public is going to be extremely happy with what we got coming. We can't say anything, so don't try and get it out of us. I'm just telling you that all right now. So, please call the roll.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye. All right, progress report. Our deputy city manager, Jake, will provide us with a new progress report.
Good evening again, Mayor and members of the 2023 Progress Report. We have updated the dashboard. This tracks performance metrics and trends across our entire organization. We have over 50 data points available for members of the council as well as the public to review online. It covers the CFO financial report as well as the City Council's 5 strategic priority areas, which include fiscal responsibility, safe, inclusive, and connected community, sustainability, innovative and service excellent, as well as economic growth. There is the link embedded within the presentation. We would encourage all to check it out and dive into the data. The April municipal election will not be held. We have 2 candidates for 2 open seats, current council member Duran as well as Andrew Rasmussen. Both council members will be sworn in at the May 9th meeting for 3-year terms. Number of updates from Public Works, starting with the Airport Division. Looking at updating the airport rules and regulations with an estimated completion in May of 2023. The department hired an airport maintenance technician, actually stole them from the parks, I might add. Pre-application of the FAA grant for taxiway improvements and pavement maintenance has been submitted. A number of projects within the engineering division, 22nd Avenue, that bid has been awarded with planned construction in summer. University Boulevard will have a bid to council in March of 23. Overlay chip seal with a bid to council in March of 23. Sidewalk repairs will be ongoing as weather allows. Same with the I-29 interchange and planned construction for this summer on 20th Street South. We do have a rescheduled public meeting, open house for the summer construction projects. Public Works Director Thompson allowed it to snow when the first one was supposed to be held, so we will reschedule that one to March 9th. Engineering Division has a number of plans and priorities for this upcoming year. Stormwater Master Plan is wrapping up with a presentation to council and members of the public planned for spring. Study on 6 Mile Creek has been slightly delayed due to ongoing discussions between the city as well as FEMA with the updated mapping for floodplain. And that is also delaying somewhat the floodplain development as we continue to work through mapping issues with FEMA, just as we work to better understand and more accurately articulate where the floodplain is within the community. And a grant has been submitted for an updated master transportation plan. Solid Waste has several construction projects planned for this upcoming year, including a leachate vault construction, as well as a force main project which would connect into the sanitary sewer. The Solid Waste Master Plan is currently underway with a stakeholder meeting planned for March 2nd. Master Fill Plan is anticipated for fall of later this year, and there are new collection trucks planned for this upcoming year as well. Streets Division will focus on thermoplastic replacement in painted crosswalks, an updated version of the winter operations plan with a plan presentation to City Council in September of this upcoming year, and a number of vehicles and equipment have been ordered and planned for delivery in March, April, and July. The police department has undertaken a number of office enhancements, and they've done so in a very cost-effective manner. They've got paint donated from the Brookings Health System. They've gotten furniture donated from a local business as well. The vast majority of this work was actually done by the staff themselves. So this was really an opportunity for them to improve the aesthetic and the functionality of their space at little to no cost, with a lot of hard work and dedication from the members of our police department. The fire training tower construction project continues to be underway. The concrete at this point has been poured for the slab. We do estimate this project will be completed in April with delivery of the unit in late March. This will provide a regional benefit beyond just the Brookings Fire Department, as there will be opportunities for training for neighboring departments. And this is a very impressive system that has a number of different uses. As council and members of the public can see, there are a multifaceted approach to training here within. The library was hosting their Black Media is Beautiful event series. To date, they had hosted 3 events and had approximately 72 attendees. And they do continue to see excitement for the Makerspace program, which includes a laser printer and very popular making of keychains. The Swiftel Center will host 38 event days in the month of February. They held the Parker McCollum concert with almost 4,000 attendees, and they also hosted the Brookings Regional Home Builders Association Home Show with just over 1,100 attendees. That concludes the report, and I would stand for any questions.
Yeah, that was like the first meeting I ever was at on city council. And I remember somebody talking about for the regional use, the possibility of renting it out for other fire departments. Have we decided that that will be rented, or?
Those dynamics would have to be explored yet, exactly how that relationship would work.
Okay, thanks, Jake.
All right, thank you, Jake. City Council member introduction of topics for future discussion. Anybody got anything they want to bring up? All right, move on to advanced agenda. I guess, John, March 9th is our next informational meeting for our construction projects. What's the times on that? 5:30 to 5 to 6:30. Please, if you're watching our council meeting tonight, maybe the newspaper also, make sure that people know that that's happening. I think more people know what's going on, the better off we're going to be. Thank you very much. All right, next meeting will be March 14th. Consent agenda, we've got a couple liquor license operating agreement renewals. We won't have to worry about vote center elections this time. And then presentations and reports. We have SDSU ex officio reports next time. Introduction of a new supervisor. Okay, and then contractor change orders. Obviously, we've got a couple second readings this evening that we'll have next meeting. With that being said, anybody else have any comments, questions? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Good evening. We are adjourned.